Welcome to Unleash Your Healing Vibes podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Paula Wright. Thanks for coming on, Paula. Can you give the audience a brief introduction of who you are, what you do in the world, and a little bit about your story?
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Alyssa. I am just so grateful to have met you and to have an opportunity to be on your podcast. I'm now an award-winning spiritual wellness and transformation coach and an author and speaker. And I help people manifest their deepest desires and find transformation in their lives. And I actually left my corporate job. Well, let me tell you, yeah, I left my corporate job during the pandemic to follow my passions and to follow my true calling. And I like to say I was at the forefront of the great resignation movement. You remember that when millions of people started leaving their jobs during the pandemic?
Yeah.
I like to say I was at the beginning of that. And so I left my corporate job. And at that time I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'd worked mostly in the nonprofit sector and leadership positions. And I was an associate state director of community outreach. And I left to and I moved to my soul place of Seattle, Washington, and manifested a life that really it was beyond anything that I dreamt. I left, the stress of commuting every day and work life imbalance and never having enough time or money to, live my life and enjoy life to now having more peace and freedom and joy than I'd ever experienced in my life. And I am living in a city that is in the midst of incredible nature. And so I've discovered that I'm a nature lover. I cannot live without it. And I'm in a walking community now. So I walk everywhere, grocery stores and coffee shops and everywhere. And so I found community, I found my people, and I am now living an abundant life. I'm now living my purpose. And I just have never been happier. But it hasn't always been this way. I lived with chronic stress and anxiety and overwhelm for a long time. I was a single parent. I dealt with work-life imbalance. I was later a caregiver to both of my parents as an only child. And I felt like I was doing everything right. I gave everything to my family, my employer, the community. I'd always been committed to personal growth and spiritual development. And I did everything that my faith was telling me to do. But I felt like I wasn't getting back to the extent that I was putting out. And I certainly wasn't manifesting, my deepest desires. I wanted so much more. I wanted to travel. I wanted more than 2 weeks vacation a year. I wanted to, explore the world. And the turning point for me was when both of my parents got sick in 2019. And I'm an only child. My father had been diagnosed with vascular dementia, and my mother was his primary caregiver. They lived 2 hours away from me. And I received a call from one of their neighbors one day saying, "Hey, Paula, we're really concerned about both of your parents. Your dad seems to be getting worse, and your mom's driving all over the place, and she seems to be suffering from paranoia. She thinks people are coming into her house." And so I ended up, to make a long story short, I ended up taking leave from work for 3 months to really, to get my parents. I moved them to Phoenix, where I was, to an assisted living community. And my father immediately went on hospice services. My mother was also diagnosed with dementia, and she began to suffer from mental health issues due to the stress of caregiving and so many other things. And so it was during this time that I was off that I just began to immerse myself in self-care practices and, walking every day and, and just doing everything that I could. And one day I felt led to call a friend of mine whose she had a teenage son who had been having a lot of problems. He was using drugs, and he had been suicidal and just getting into trouble and just not doing well. And I felt led to call and, to see how he was doing. And she said, "Paula, he has had a miraculous turnaround. He is doing so well. She said he's been working with this woman on this process. And it's just been amazing. And I said, well, who is this woman and what has he been doing? Because I need to call her. I want to
Yeah.
talk to her too. Right. And so she gave me the information and I contacted this practitioner, and the work that she was doing was called the emotion code body code work. And so I immediately scheduled an appointment with her and began working with her. And the emotion code body code is a process of releasing trapped emotions and energy blocks. And this was really my introduction, Lisa, to understanding, first of all, energy, that, energy is everything. And also generational trauma, and that most of us are carrying, trauma from our ancestors that we're not even aware of. And and because of our own, trauma in all the other areas, and everybody's had trauma as well. When we don't process that, it becomes trapped. It becomes trapped emotions and blocked energy, and it can hold us back from everything. And so I began doing this work with her, and it was just transformational. I mean, I felt shifts just after 1 hour sessions with her.
Wow.
And it's really profound work, because it's through this process they're able to practitioners are able to identify when that emotion, it became trapped. I mean, like your age, there's something that happened at, 26 years of age, and there's something that happened at this time, what was going on. And it's not even important that they know, but that's what's showing up. And also they're able to identify which side of the family the trapped emotion came from. And so I was carrying so much stuff from both sides of my family. And I thought, okay, everything's going to show up on my dad's side of the family, but it was my mom. I mean, it was both, but there was so much stuff on my mom's side that came up that it was just like, I just never would have had any knowledge of this. And so this process was able to release a lot of that. And I was also able to, I was also doing some work related to neurolinguistic programming. Are you familiar?
Yeah, NLP.
Yeah, NLP. Yeah.
Yeah.
So reprogramming our thoughts, and visualizing that desired outcome. And through these two practices, things shifted in my life so quickly, very quickly. And it became so clear to me during the time of my leave that I wasn't supposed to go back to my corporate job, that God was calling me out to step into the work that I was created for. And so by the time I went back to work, it was just total clarity that this is absolutely what I want to do. And I remember sending an email out to my colleagues saying, my notice, I'm leaving. And one of my colleagues came into my office and said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because I had a high paying job. I had a security, I'm giving up all of the security and the
Yeah.
pay. And I said, "Absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's so much living to do, And so I'd already made up my mind that I was going to be moving to Seattle after my dad passed. And as I said, I just manifested just beyond anything that I could have imagined through this work. Yeah.
Wow. So with the body code, tell me real quick, you said you didn't have to know which side exactly it came from. So is you don't have to do research with the family about the ancestors or anything like that?
Nothing. Absolutely not. Because
Right.
because everything is energy. Everything is energy. And through
Right.
these when you're working with a trained practitioner, there's a process. There's noise out there. They're able to identify energetically and intuitively, and there's other guidelines that they follow, obviously, but they're able to just identify and tell you this is where it's on your mom's side, fifth generation, sixth generation. I mean, it truly is profound work. It really is, and I highly encourage people. Anybody that I'm talking to, I highly encourage them to look into doing the work. Because as I said, the trapped energy, and then the emotions, it can block us our entire lives. It can. So yeah.
So what are you doing now? What is your manifested offer?
Yeah. So now what I'm doing is I am a public speaker and I offer online courses to teach others these things that have absolutely been transformational in my life. And my passion, I believe, Alyssa, that it's God's will for every single person on this earth to live an abundant life. And that's what I've manifested. And abundance is more than just money because money can't buy happiness. You look at all the, there's so many wealthy people in this world who are absolutely miserable. And then you've got so many poor people who are full of joy. But abundance is so much more. It includes money, but it's about fulfillment and purpose and peace and joy and passion and having more than enough of everything and being whole, being whole in our soul. And that is our mind and our will and our emotions. And so I offer two courses. Actually, the first one will be released in a month. And so I'm going to give your listeners at the end, I'll give them my website information. They can download some free resources to be added to my mailing list to be notified. But the first one is on mastering the law of attraction through Christ consciousness. And I created this course. I realized after doing this work and being introduced to the concept of energy, I'm also an ordained Christian minister, by the way. And yeah, and I realized that, man, energy is everything. And this is the piece that Christians are missing
Yep.
because because most Christians have been taught that, wrongly taught, that it's not of God. And I am now a master law of attraction coach. And so this course is designed to really, first of all, to dispel all the myths about the law of attraction and provide people the facts about the origins of the law and what it is, and to provide people practical tools that they can use on a daily basis to help manifest their desires. Because this is what, you have listeners probably of all faiths, and the law of attraction the laws are, it's actually, the principles are universal. So regardless of what a person's faith is, they can benefit from learning from this. But science, God created science. Science merely discovers what God created, what he's already put into motion. And the law of attraction, I believe, is one of the most powerful tools that God has given us to co-create with him. And co-creation means simply putting our faith into action. And this is when, a lot of believers, we get stuck. And I was one of them for many years. I want something and I pray and I just believe God, but I do nothing other than believe, you know. And the word tells us that faith without works is dead.
Yep.
That means that we have to put our faith into action. And the law of attraction is the most powerful way, I believe, to do that. It provides the tools. And so that's what this course is about. And it's transformational. And what I actually what I didn't know is that I'm guided by the Holy Spirit. And so I had been doing a lot of these things before I even knew, oh, these are the principles of the law of attraction. Oh my goodness. The Holy Spirit guided me to do these things. And now I know what it is. And so yes, that's my first course. And my second course is called the Live Free Process. And it really is designed to, after all the years of doing this personal work and doing this brand transformational work with the emotion code, body code, and NLP, really coming to an understanding of, these are the 5 things that we need to do to really to find freedom in life. And freedom, it looks different for, everybody, but ultimately it's about freedom for our souls. And our soul is our mind and our will and our emotions. And so it's the course on, these 5 things that you need to do to really to be free and to live a free life, which is God's will for everyone as well. So
Right. But
yeah.
those are awesome. And you said one is not out yet, but one is out?
No, so the first one will be released at the end of July, the
Okay.
Law of Attraction one, and the other one, the Live Free Process, will be released in August,
Oh,
right?
okay. Well,
And
that's
and
not
I
too far off.
and I not too far off, not too far off. And I also wanted to mention, the course is called Master the Law of Attraction through Christ Consciousness. And this is a word that many people, depending on where you're at or, where you live regionally, you may not have heard. Have you heard that term yet?
Yes.
Christ consciousness. You have. Okay. So for those who don't understand what that means, as a believer, as a Christian, God's ultimate goal for us is to be conformed to the image of Christ. And that means in our minds, our thoughts, our hearts, our actions, and in our conscience, and to love one another. That's it really is that simple. Man has made it really, really complicated, but it really is that simple. And that's what Christ consciousness means. And we're living in a time where we're seeing this. People are changing because that comes from it's a transformation that happens from within. And so when you get to that place, I like to call it being in alignment. Have you heard that term before? Being in alignment, meaning do your inner work to heal your stuff and come into alignment with these things. Manifestation can become almost effortless. And that's the way God designed it. You know, we most of us have learned that, there's only one way to achieve success in life, and that's just to, kill yourself with stress and, sacrifice your time and your health and your family and everything. And what I discovered is that there's another way. And so I feel so passionate about sharing this information with others now.
Well, see, so often we're taught to look externally, and even in religion and in Christianity too, they want, God's out here, but God's in here. And so that's awesome.
Right. That's right. The Bible clearly says that the kingdom of God is within us. And so when we get in alignment in our thoughts and our hearts and our minds, and then that's when, he's just given us unlimited such power within. Within. But yes, you're absolutely right. The kingdom is within us. And I think the more that people can get a hold of that and tap into the power that God has created us, they can step into the abundant life that he created, wants us all to have. Yeah. Yes.
What advice would you give to our listeners who may be struggling with problems like you said, with stress and overwhelm, and maybe can't jump into some certain modalities? What advice would you give to them to get started where they're at?
Yeah. That's a great question. And especially in the times that we're living in right now, where so much going on throughout the world, and so many people are dealing with such loss and trauma and stress on a daily basis. The advice that I would give for people who may not be able to jump into, doing the emotion code or body code or NLP, is to begin by start meditating to quiet the mind. We have a choice about what we allow ourselves to see and to listen to and to hear, and the people that we allow into our lives. And meditation is such a powerful tool for not only the mind, calming the mind and the body. There's health benefits and the spirit, but really hearing from God and getting guidance from God, and beginning transformation. And so I encourage people just to start with just 5 minutes of silent meditation every morning, and find a place that that's private. They're not going to be interrupted, and just start with a few deep breaths and pay attention to the breath and try to empty the mind. And the mind is going to wander, because that's what the mind does. But if it wanders, notice it, but notice it without judgment, and just go back to your breath. And the other thing is to go back to your five senses. Some people refer to it as the child's mind. So as you're meditating and your eyes are closed, think about what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're seeing. You may see dots in your eyes or something. What you're feeling. Go back to those five senses and focus on that. But just 5 minutes of silent meditation every day, every morning, can have a really profound effect on your entire life. So really begin with that. And also be I'm getting ready to release a tip on Instagram on this. Avoid fear-based media.
Just
Avoid.
turn it off, right?
Yeah, don't, I mean, it's, find things that are uplifting to watch, the things that are really going to nurture your soul on TV, movies and or read a book but do as much as you can to avoid. God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of sound mind. And that'll keep fear-based media that's a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
topic, but it'll just keep you in this state of where you're a fear and scarcity and you'll never be able to break through. So avoid it as much as you can, the news and whatever. You're going to hear about what's going on somehow, but begin to look at those things that really bring you joy. For me, I watch romance and nature channels and cooking shows, and I get out and walk in nature and I listen to music, I dance, do more of the things that bring you joy. So those two tips I would give. Start with those two things. And those are
Okay.
huge, have a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, well, and that they would work, the fear-based, like you said, you can't really manifest from a lower, state like that. And I think that's part of why it's, so prevalent.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And the fact is that God created an abundant universe and
Yeah.
there's enough of everything for everyone: money, love, resources. And once you get into alignment and you gain these tools to manifest your desires, it doesn't matter what's going on with the economy. It doesn't matter. Politics don't matter. None of those things matter. And I'll share this because I know we're coming to the end. Is that 2 weeks ago, I decided that I was going to start getting up and affirming that today I experience heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Today I experience heaven on earth. And I repeat that over and over again in the morning. On the second day, I received an unexpected check for over $7,000 in the mail. Do you hear
Wow.
me? And
That's
it turns
fast.
out, yeah, it was apparently this class action lawsuit that I was a part of that I had no idea that I was a part of, didn't have a clue because it was something, from many years ago, many, many years ago. But, begin speaking, what you want. And I believe it's God's will for us to experience heaven on earth as well.
That's really pretty story, and it gives hope because a lot of people, they may try affirmations here and there, and they don't see anything real quick. So then
Yeah.
they might, take off from it, but not everybody's is going to be that fast. But gives hope
It's
that
true. It's so true. And that what you said, I'm so glad you brought up the affirmations because the affirmations are just the starting point.
yeah,
Because you've got to do the work first. You got to do your work to heal your trauma and the emotional wounds and to release those limiting beliefs for affirmations to really have, impact. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes.
yeah, that's exactly right. So as long as you put forth the effort,
Yes, yes. And I want to say how proud I am of you and the work that you're doing. I think we connected on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And when I saw you and your title, breaking generational strongholds and energy, and I said, wow, 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 this is my kindred soul right here. This young woman is a powerhouse. And, I went to your website and saw all that you were doing, and you have really stepped into your calling.
Yeah.
And, you're having great impact, and this is just the beginning for you. And I just identify with you so much because I believe that you're an empathic person as well. Right. And I am as well. And I believe that so many of us, well, first of all, we've all had trauma and some of us more than others. But I believe that this is a time where so many of us are being called to step into the work that we were created for. And, we've had to go through some stuff to get to this
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's the way I look at it. I want to take the pain and everything that I went through and be able to be a shining light for someone else, and I do feel like that's all of our calling. So that's awesome.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah,
Well,
so I want to invite your listeners to visit my
okay.
website. There's a couple of free resources. It's Paula Wright Official.com. and they can download. One is the chapter, my chapter in the book called The Keys to Authenticity, which is it's a best-selling book with Jack Canfield. And some of you, I don't know if you're fairly young, but Jack Canfield was the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Had you ever
Yeah.
heard of those?
Yeah. They were we
Another,
read them when we were little. That's when they came.
oh, yeah, so huge, another big manifestation, something I never could have seen coming, but I received the Editor's Choice Award for my contribution to the
Wow.
book. And the other one is a free guide on overcoming the 5 common blocks to manifestation as a Christian. And these are things that, most Christians have not been taught to believe, or not been taught that we need to be. We all need to be. And one of them is energy and what it is. And so it's 5 blocks and how it impacts your life and how to overcome them. So I'd highly encourage them to download the resources.
Okay. I will get links for those and put them in the description for the video as well. I really want to thank you
Awesome.
for coming on today, Paula. And I
Thank
want
you
to
so
I want to remind my listeners too that I have a 5-day challenge going on right now for healing ancestral curses and stuff, and it really is like a step by step. So if anybody wants to sign up for that, that'll also be in the link below. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.